This is the dawn of FM 2.0 and press play the app. We've got Tina here too, obviously, always with me lately. And the great Kristopher Roe of the legendary band, the Ataris.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Good to have you. Obviously, I always loved your band name because did you ever have an Atari system, by the way?
Of course. That's how it came out. When I was 15, I used to go around to thrift stores in Indiana and collect Atari games. I got up to about 700 cartridges for about I mostly from the 2600, and I also loved. I had the other 5200 and the 7800, but mostly 2600 cartridges. I was going out to a Kinko's to make my demo cassette, like the J card for it. And my one friend with the car at 15 is like, dude, my mom, she's going to ground me if I don't get home. Just think of a band name. And he looks down at all my Atari cartridges. He goes, just call it the Ataris. Let's go. And I'm like, oh, okay. So thank you, Mike.
That's awesome. That's
Mike
awesome.
from Anderson, for Mike Branch from Anderson, Indiana, for coming up with that name. But yeah, that was
Mike.
it. But all the games melted in a house fire. So I walked into the house fire after it was all done. And I was just going through trying to find anything salvageable. And it was a molten black blob mass of Atari games. And it was so crushing. But yeah, that's the name.
Wow.
That's an awesome story.
It is a great story because that was one of those things that other kids, I was always last growing up on getting things that other kids had, right? Like, so everybody in school, I go with the Atari 2600 and I'm playing Pac-Man, Pitfall Harry and all that. I'm like, oh, that's great. I can play it at a friend's house. And just as that was waning, because I think Sega was about to come in, and I get the Atari 2600, and then here comes Sega, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess no one wants to come over and play now. I get the old game. So,
well, that's the beauty of what got me as a kid into kind of alternative culture and music. It's like we were the uncool kids that everybody would pick on and beat up and call weird for like an art and music and nerdy things. And yeah, that was my gateway into like punk rock and going to see the Ramones and all these bands, because it was I always pick last and always but that's cool. I think that's why, you're doing the things you do, and that's great. Because you like me, we had the system after it was no longer cool.
But I loved it still. I didn't care.
Me too.
I had it and I played, and it like Qbert, all that fun stuff.
Oh yeah, super fun, man.
I love Atari when I got high. Are we allowed to say that here? Go to, even as we got older, we're like, yeah, let's do this.
I never smoked weed much, but I did late in life after I lost my father and had some really bad anxiety and depression. I started reading this article about, it was an acronym, MOM. It was a group out of Denver that was called Moms on Microdosing of Mushrooms. And I was like, I've always heard great things about it. So I started microdosing mushrooms, and I was like, this is amazing. It's really great. I know they're legal in like Ann Arbor and stuff. So yeah, I like, and then I started like, okay, I'll do a little more, but so that was like last year I did a bit of that, but that was the extent of it. I'm pretty sober for 10 years, but mushrooms, I think it really helped creativity, and I'm a firm believer in it.
Yeah, my son did some microdosing, and he really benefited from it. And matter of fact, he actually just applied to Michigan because he's at Boulder, Colorado right now, but he applied to Michigan because it's legal up in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
I think it's good. I think it should, that and weed. I think it should totally be legal. There's
gonna be a lot of tie-ins to that with the new song, only of the TV show that we're going to talk about. Let me play a little bit of this. This is bringing Kristopher back in time.
Oh goodness, what song is it?
A young version of himself. Well, you're going to hear it.
Okay.
But why this song was incredible to me was the breakdown in it, because I'm a huge fan of music breakdowns. Going halftime and all that. Let's see if that gives you a clue. This song goes right into an outro halftime. It's all instrumental, like a minute and a half out on it.
Yeah.
Does that give you a clue on what it is?
We have a few songs with breakdowns, but like if I don't know how old back you're going, but I think I have an inkling.
Second album?
Second. Okay, so you're talking about Blue Skies, Broken Hearts album?
Right. Like I'll give you, it has to do with one of the seasons.
Yes.
Ooh. The 4 seasons out there. Winter.
Well, we have a lot of songs with summer. So,
there you go. The Summer Wind.
Oh, Summer Wind was always our song. Yeah.
I love this song.
Thank you. The title basically was a nod to Frank Sinatra, because the person I liked, who later became my wife back then, we're separated now, when we kind of knew that we liked each other, but we were both kind of at the time like occupied with something that we probably weren't happy with. And then we later both split at the same time and ended up together. We would always go to this bar in Santa Barbara called the Sportsman Lounge. And I'd play Summer Wind, the Frank Sinatra song in the jukebox, is a little nod like, yeah, I'm this is for you. And she would know it. And, you know, it was one of those things.
Oh.
But yeah, so that's where it came about.
Is this going to be tough to hear?
No. You know,
okay.
for me, I'm always songs. If I wrote a love song for somebody, there was feeling in it. Even if I don't have those feelings for that person anymore, it takes on a new life because it's somebody else's now. The fans, maybe it's a love song of theirs, you know, for their partners. Yeah, this song. This song is actually a little bit beyond that. It's kind of a song where I knew that another relationship was ending too. It's because the first line is about how these breakup songs make sense again, and I really wish they didn't. It was like,
I love.
Well, I appreciate that very, very much so.
Well, let me do this little breakdown here. Then we're gonna get into the car song.
Awesome, thank you.
So let me do this.
Oh my goodness, not that guy. The lip ring and the goofy hair. That was my apartment I shared with my ex partner Janice. We had this apartment that was the size of a hallway. God, I forget that the walls were so red. It was so weird. But yeah, that was our couch. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, in Santa Barbara. Yeah, I literally used to share a space with my bass player across the street, and I moved across the street, moved out, and moved in with an apartment like literally on the other side of the street with my wife at the time. So yeah, that's
fantastic.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
Now
that's the Sportsman. Yeah, I used that bar in the video. That's where I would go. That jukebox is where I would play the Summer Wind for her on the jukebox. And the bartender that's in this is the real bartender there. This guy named Gene, who's still a friend to this day. Yeah.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, the bar is gone. It's still there, but it's a different location. But there's two bartenders there that were really sweet. One woman who was still a friend too. So all good old friends from Santa Barbara. And these were real patrons that were just annoying in there filming while they're trying to get day drunk. I don't know any of these people. They weren't.
Damn it, Kristopher! Get out of here, Kristopher! Come on, I'm trying to get day drunk. Here we go.
Yeah.
And again, Tina, while I'm playing this is. And if Grizz was here, he'd say the same thing. These are the things, those moments in music that gave me goosebumps. Is they go into this little breakdown, and it becomes their outro.
I didn't dig it. You know, a funny little tidbit about that. So the live footage of that video, that was a show. We had a record store, but it wasn't that we wanted to make a record store. We were a bunch of derelict punk rock musicians. We just basically needed a rehearsal space. But we found a spot, and of course, Santa Barbara is this beautiful coastal city. The landlord's like, "Well, I will let you rehearse if you open up a store." And I'm like, "What are we gonna open up? We're a bunch of rapping musicians." But I'm like, "Well, we'll open a record store." I liked High Fidelity. It was my favorite book and movie, and I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." Yeah, great, right? Yeah. So, but anyway, one further tidbit about that. So that outro, that is us blatantly. I love the band Jawbreaker, and they did a lot of that.
Love Jawbreaker.
Dear You. Dear You is great. So that's a lot of Dear You, but also that drum beat, that is straight me taking a nod from the song "Murder Was the Case." I love that drum beat in that, and there's also a shellac song, Steve Albini's band, that does that.
Oh yeah, shellac. Yeah.
And I love that, like that triple snare thing, and I just, because I'll write all these things in my manic brain, and then I play all the parts in the studio and show them to the band. But I was showing the drummer, I'm like, it goes like this. He's like, it just sounds so erratic. I'm like, trust me, it'll work. But yeah, I like the breakdown of that song. It's fun to play live, and we still play that song sometimes to this day.
I don't know if you can see that, but that's the band Jawbox's album.
Amazing, yeah. That
Real Special Sweetheart that they all signed for me.
Yeah, Jay Robbins is a genius. I love him, and amazing. Yeah, I couldn't tell because it was cutting off, but yeah, I remember seeing.
I need to lower that more because that's one of my favorite records.
Really, really great. Yeah, that's for your special
Sweetheart.
Yeah, album. Savory. When that video aired, I remember thinking like game changer. Yeah.
All right, let me just share a quick story since you're a music nerd. Like, when I got that album, that was one of those that somebody at work had told me about. It was one of those, hey, you got to check out this band, and I bought the tape. Now, I wasn't into the post hardcore scene at all. I didn't know anything about it. Pop it in the cassette player, and it starts with that FF equals 6/6.
Yeah, song.
Well, just loud and gnarly, and I popped it out of the cassette player. This sucks, and I threw it in the backseat of my car. Right? No, that was me. Well, then a week later, I'm cleaning my car, and I go, oh, there's the cassette. I'll just throw it in here, and I got to Savory, what we're talking about, and my life changed. I got picked up Keith Grizz. I went to his house. I go, dude, we're going for a drive. And I played Free, and we were done. We became post-hardcore fans.
That's great.
That
Yeah,
moment.
I loved all this, and thanks for sharing that. I used to go see Quicksand and
New York City, right there.
Yeah,
Oh,
great bands. But for me, I'd have to drive to Chicago to see them because Indianapolis, it was hard unless you were 21 at the time. You had the Vogue in Indianapolis, but there weren't a lot of all ages shows. And then the Emerson opened up, and they would bring some bands, but like. Yeah, it was always go to Cincinnati to Bogarts or go to Chicago, and that's what we would do. Maybe Cleveland for the occasional show, but it's just how we grew up. And yeah, that was one of those bands I saw a couple times. And like Fugazi, I would see all the times. All those bands kind of adjacent to that world were like definitely my a lot of my favorites as a kid too. So that's cool. But anyway, yeah, thanks for sharing. It's
do you have anything before I get into Car Song?
Yeah, of course.
No, I can't wait to talk about Car Song.
Oh, why don't you lead it off? You listen.
I just want you to know. First of all, so Christopher, the first time I heard of the Ataris, obviously when you redid Don Henley's "Boys of Summer," because "Boys of Summer" is definitely one of my top 5 favorite songs of all time. I am a humongous Eagles fan. So when you guys came on the scene with that, I was like, and then we got the opportunity to bring you in for the interview, and I started listening to the Car Song, and it's literally on the top of my Spotify list right now, and I've played it probably 10 times in the last couple days. It's so good, and I relate to it because I'm in Indiana right now, but I've lived in California for many, many years, and I love California. I've always been drawn to it as a young person. I'll probably, being from Indiana, it's like a destination. It's where you want to go. All the stuff is happening, right? And so. I think I related a lot to that song. I loved, some of the lyrics, the car crash heart, and some stuff that you put in there. And I'm just like,
thank you.
I related to it as like, I wish that I was in that car with you heading to California, just to have that experience, which brings me to, what was your writing like? Like, why this song, and why after 10 years of almost nothingness did this come, this new album is coming to fruition?
Well, thank you for the question and for sharing that. So first and foremost, like in a lot of my writing, especially starting with So Long Astoria album, the one with Boys of Summer, I really loved to always try to like fly that flag for the Midwest and for where I'm from. It's just ingrained in me. I always say that like, I've got a Midwest heart and, California soul. I love the feeling of being back where I grew up in the Midwest and just seeing, there's just something about it that just, it's like every great Springsteen song or every great Billy Joel song, there is this kind of feeling in the heartland in the Midwest that you get that you can't really, feel anywhere else. And in this song, my dad, like I mentioned off camera earlier, that my dad worked at General Motors in Anderson for 37 years and making car parts. And so they gave me a car when I was 15. It was my first car technically. And then I had a couple tour vans. But the first new car I bought off the assembly line was a 2003 Dodge Neon. Super exciting, I know. But that car was the catalyst for this song. I want it to sound like I'm writing about like a lost love or a partner. But it's more so written about all the memories I had driving around, windows down on all these tours, on all these adventures in that car. And I felt something everybody can relate to, a good car song. But then the second verse, the verse about, the winter sky is weeping, the factories lie in their graves. That's all about Anderson and my dad working at that factory and going back and seeing a lot of these boarded up buildings and, how the Midwest has this thing where a lot of that industry is shut down. And you see that kind of these places that once had a more uplifting story, but also now you see that there's beauty in this sadness. And I always like to kind of have that come across in my songs, that melancholy. And so that's kind of how it started out. And I'm really grateful. And thank you for the kind words about it. I'm really grateful people seem to dig it. And it's nice that I'm really, really happy that, to put like one thing I always try to do is I record really organically all to like analog tape. So what you hear is like the sound of human elements, not a bunch of auto tune and Pro Tools and all that stuff. Like it's the heart of those records I grew up loving, and just some more rock and roll back in the radio. I think it's great. Some guitar rock, because those anthems I grew up listening to on like, classic rock radio, which was just rock radio back then in Indianapolis and whatever. Like that stuff is what I love. Exactly. Yeah. It was Q95 all the way in my dad's Monte Carlo and late 70s and early 80s, and then he bought an IROC in 85. So that was I just wanted some more of that like fun rock and roll and like that feeling of summer, windows down, music blaring loud, and that's kind of what this new album sounds like. It's very much a continuation of Car Song. There's a lot of that. There are some cool, like he said, there's a lot of cool breakdowns in a couple songs. There's some peaks and valleys. I think an album should take you on a ride, because as a 48-year-old human, I think in the terms of albums, I think singles are great, but I really want this to be, the like Jane's Addiction, Ritual, Daily Habitual. Side A is a rock album. Side B starts with 3 Days, which is a 13-minute beautiful song that's a journey. There's no 13-minute songs, but the album closer is like a 7-minute track that's a really cool journey. But the rest is a rock and roll album with some cool layers and breakdowns and things. And it sounds like the Ataris that people have been probably longing for since we released So Long Astoria. So yeah. Excited for people to hear it.
A hit, my friend. A hit. And also, I'll never forget how old you are, because you were born in the blizzard of 77.
It's true. I aged myself. That's the one downside is, anybody who didn't know that I'm, how old I am, they're like, oh, God.
Well, come on, what do they think? You're going to stay young forever, for God's sake?
Yeah. But, I think I'm going to always be the nerdy young at heart kid in my bedroom.
That's it. It's all in here.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's not, this is going to change and shit.
Of course. I mean, look at this.
But there's product out there and Botox and, I
don't care about it. At the end of the day, I've seen the Stones 6 times, and the fact that those guys can get up and still sound phenomenal, like in their upper 70s. It's like, hey man, this is what I love doing.
70s. I think Keith Richards is like 100 and something, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that guy should have. In logic, that guy should have died years ago. But I mean, kudos to him for still kicking it.
Christopher Roe, that they just get up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And move like Mick Jagger, the way move like Jagger. I'm telling you, that dude. Yeah. Wow.
Well, let me do this since.
Sorry to me. So this is a real Airbnb in Phoenix, but as people will see, it's run by Walter White, but not in real life.
No, that was the genius part of this.
Thank you.
Bryan Cranston.
That photo, so great.
That show was unreal.
I saved that photo. We're gonna auction it off for like a contest.
The White family would have an Airbnb.
Yeah. It's pretty great. And of course, as a shitty Airbnb guest, I immediately go and ignore the rules. Like, I'm just gonna rip the sign down and go right into the garage.
Yeah, you had your Adam and Eve moment. You couldn't help but take part in the tree.
Totally. I immediately just bit the apple right out.
Forbidden fruit, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I gotta see what's out here.
But the backstory right here, you bought. This is the actual car from Breaking Bad.
This is it. I bought it from the assistant director. The visors are signed by Cranston and Aaron Paul. And there's actually a receipt in the glove box that Walter White signed Cranston signed as Walter White, which is pretty amazing. This is the scene line.
You rest amongst the rust of these roadside monuments. In all their former glories, the driving nights that came and went. You fought on hard through rain-beaten nights, past the shadows of state lines. Now this victory dance, it belongs to you and
I. Phoenix, Arizona. Saying this is all driving around the suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona. It's we did I did a day of driving, and then we went out to way east of Phoenix, and ended up on a lot of the reservation, and we actually had 2 real cops stop us and telling us we couldn't film because they're real strict about filming on the reservations. And but it was cool. They were super nice. They ended up being fans, and it was a fun day of filming. Really cool.
That's cool how you were able to tie that in. I was wondering if that was a real.
Yeah, the last cop is not real.
Right.
But the cops you'll see in the middle of the video are actual real cops that saw us filming in these abandoned houses on the reservation, kind of like out way east of Phoenix, and they stopped us, and we had like the film one director and one guy with them, and they took us aside, and then they were like, "What are you guys doing?" And like, "Oh, we're a band." The Ataris like, "Oh, I know your band," and then they just ended up being really cool dudes, and we hung out and talked. But yeah, anyway.
That's fantastic. All right.
Sounds like a good time.
It does. Well, let's continue this good time right here.
All right.
serenade on these Indian summer nights. Out past the cold dark
I was like, good, he threw in the pizza seat.
Yeah, this was fun. You know, I threw mine first. I got it on the first try. Bass player who you see him throw his first, he got his on the first try, and then the only one who didn't get it on the first try is Chris, the drummer, and he's not. They didn't show him throwing his pizza, but that was my idea. I'm like, dude, we got to add the pizza thing in the video.
You
like,
do.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm so glad we did it. And the dog was the ultimate winner because the dog, as you see in the video, was like,
"Let's eat the pizza."
Yeah, he was so stoked. That
so
was
did one of your band
owner.
members. So did one of your band members.
Yeah, he was eating it. Yeah, I was just like, I can't eat after this day of filming yet, but I was like excited. But yeah, the dog belonged to the guy who Jeff and Em who run the label that put out the Car Song 7-inch, and their kids were like super excited to see us throw pizzas on the roof, and we promised them like if we don't make it, they can get a try. But we all made it, and so they were bummed. I think that they didn't get it. But, much to the dismay of the parents, I think they were actually happy that they didn't get to throw pizza. Anyway, yeah, it was a fun day of filming. There was a lot of really cool little things, and like as you see in the video, the guys in the band were my live band from the So Long Astoria era lineup, and I record all the tunes in the studio, but those guys like were always the face of the band in the Astoria days, and so that I wanted to be a big surprise. Nobody knew they were going to be in the video, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to see anybody playing in the video. I just want you to see that, hey, we're still friends after all these years. We're going to have this fun buddy road trip in this stolen Breaking Bad Volvo. Yeah, we literally kept it a secret up until the day the video went live, and the response was really cool. I think it was like a little bonus Easter egg of like, holy hell, these guys are still, yeah. Anyway, so that was cool. Yeah, hanging out with old friends for the day.
I just want to show the pizza flying through the air moment. Here we go. Yes. Looking back with glee and excitement, that's just a great moment.
Oh man, we high-fived for real. That was real. Like we were super excited about everything. And so here's me getting arrested. Yeah,
let's go to the end.
This is Bob, my drummer, arrested my drummer in the studio, and the studio owner who's the cop and the drummer on the song.
He gets to play cop. There we go.
Obviously, you're under arrest. Stop resisting. Stop resisting.
So good, man.
And then, of course, Walter White comes and repos the car right out from under us. Yeah, and Bob played awesome. Walter White too. Yeah, it's funny. The same guy, Bob Hogue, who's the drummer on the track and the studio owner. He played the cop and Walter White. So it's a little bit of Lon Chaney movie magic there, you know. Thank you. I had a lot of fun doing it. I think the response has been killer. Who doesn't love Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul? They were my favorite shows, and I still rewatch them constantly, probably way too much.
Another important thing before you go, there's the pressing of your vinyl, and the special thing that was done, and I found it so original, and for someone, it really inspired me to. I'm going to update my will to have that done because I always wanted to be cremated myself.
That's so cool.
No, seriously, I had never known that you could do that. And now, obviously, I don't know if you could do it with an album that's not your band. I mean, that's your band's record. I don't know if
well, this is a huge controversy from what I know, right? Like, there's 8 states that you can't sell your record in.
You might. Oh, yeah. I didn't know it's that many. I thought it was like 4 or 5. But anyway, yeah, there are a few. But yeah, how it kind of came about is I was on a flight once years and years ago, and after my dad had passed, and I saw in an in-flight magazine that you could press like a voice memo or a song to a loved one in ashes, but you could it was just a thing for a family. They do like 10 of them, and it was so freaking expensive. So I'm like, maybe we could reach out to like some pressing plants that would do a pressing of this. And not only that, but like I wouldn't want to take a dime from it because it just would feel weird to me. I really wanted this to just be about the tribute to my dad. So I put his ashes in the vinyl because he was always the biggest supporter of the band. And I wanted to make him a physical part of the music he always championed and encouraged me to create. And and in the end, it was a way to like how I not only spread his ashes in one place, he gets to live out in the world in infamy. And the pressing plant that did it was super cool. And I gave all the proceeds from that vinyl because he died of causes that were related to his years of alcoholism. He got sober, but it took a toll on his body. So I wanted to take his story and do something positive with it. So all the proceeds from the vinyl go to help a charity, Shatterproof, that help families and kids that struggle with alcoholism and addiction or are affected by it. And there's a lot of resources in the vinyl for mental health, for like AA and things, because my mom and dad, they were always a big advocate of those things. We always went to like adjacent groups with my dad for families of alcoholics and also to therapy. And that helped shape me to be the person, the songwriter I am. So, yeah, it was another way to like take this and make something positive out of something that was really, really heavy and hard that we all go through. Everyone can relate to losing a parent or a child or a loved one, you know. So that was important to me to share that story. And I didn't expect everyone to understand it. That's why, like, 99% of the comments have been so supportive. But the couple I've seen, like, man, that's weird. I'm like, I totally get that. Here's the dedication I wrote to my dad from the 7-inch inside of it. Give it a read if you feel so inclined. And I think you'll see it's coming from a real place of like good intentions. And almost always they've been like, unless they were just a troll on the internet, but they've almost always been really like, oh man, I like got choked up. I'm like, thank you. Thanks for understanding my thing. It wasn't about anybody else. I would have did this if it was just me doing the 10 records for family, but that was literally more expensive than pressing like several hundred of these, and I got 200 to give to family that nobody will ever touch, and then there's 300 I believe that go out to public. Still a real small specialty press. I have no doubt this will be the most important release I ever put out, just because it was celebrating the most important person in my life. Yeah,
that's fantastic. So how does one get an album?
Okay, so if you want to get, I don't know if that 7-inch variant sold out yet, but if you want to get it, you can go to the atarisband.com or just Facebook, Instagram, X, the Ataris. Double Helix Records put it out. It's an indie label from Phoenix, Arizona. And we also did a variant that's silver and turquoise, looks like a black and white cookie, but one half is silver, one's turquoise. And that's a exact color match to my father's turquoise ring he wore his entire life that served as his wedding band. And I got it after he passed. And then there's also 2 less rare variants of rust red that matches that's another thing I'll mention. That I normally do the photography for all of our album covers, but this photograph on the cover, I actually found in an Indiana photography group a Facebook group that I follow. And it was an old gymnasium. I believe it might be in Kokomo. I'm not sure exactly, but the name of the photographer's in the vinyl. I just loved the kind of sadness to the photo. And my dad, he was diehard Anderson Indians was the gymnasium, the wigwam there, and that was where he was in the high school band there, and that's like a thing in Anderson, Indiana. And so it reminded me of him, and I loved the loneliness of the photo. And we reached out to the nice individual who took it and said, I would love to represent Indiana further on this 7-inch and your photography. Can we use it? We'll pay you to use it. And he was like, it's the nicest person to do it. So thank you for letting us use your photo on such a special release. Anyway, that was another tie-in for the records back to my hometown.
Fantastic. I'm actually going to go buy the record right now.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. You're awesome.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is I have a hard time where people think it was weird, only because when music means something to someone, and then of course your backstory, like you said, when you tell people to read the backstory, but how much your dad loved what you did and proud of what you did, that makes it even more special what you did for him. Because I will tell you, if somebody did that for me, because it's related to music creatively like that, I'd have been like, wherever I was in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
I'd be so happy.
Thank you. I think so too. I mean, anybody who knows my dad would definitely know that, like, there's 2 things that dude loved: NASCAR and this band, and my mom, and that's like, no, tell her, but that's probably a close third. No, not really. Just joking. But yeah, man. And another really cool little tie-in I mentioned in the dedication in the 7-inch about my dad is that just, I'd say weeks before this all happened, Dale Earnhardt Jr., his son, Dale Earnhardt was his favorite NASCAR driver. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is a big fan of like this kind of music. And he posted a music driving playlist, and our band was on his playlist. And I just remember thinking, like, man, that would have been my dad's like proudest moment, seeing his two favorite worlds collide. So I mentioned that in the release about Dale Jr. and I sent him a message and said, man, you would never understand, but like, thank you. It meant like a total double meaning that you would include that. Like, not only am I honored because you're a phenomenal driver, but also because, like, dude, you and your father were my dad's favorite drivers. Like, we're from Indiana. He loved the 500, but like, he was a NASCAR dude. Me, I was never big into sports because, I'm just the art weirdo, but I would come home, we'd have the TV up to like 11 with like,
you guys on the 500 and play sometime.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
Oh my God, could you imagine if the Ataris played the Indianapolis 500?
That would be like a full circle dream come true. I saw the Stones.
That's the only reason I go there is for
they could do the Brickyard. They could do the Brickyard 400.
Man, yeah. If they've ever invited us, I would say yes without even blinking an eye. I would do that for nothing. Yeah, that would be like the Indiana full circle for me. But anyway, yeah,
that's fantastic, man.
I would take it anyway. But yeah, it was a blast, and I really appreciate all the support and talking to. Hanging out with a couple cool people. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Chris. Well, again, the Ataris. Now, the new record's out?
Oh, no. I am in the studio, really, where I am now, finishing up. I'd say it's about 75% done. I've got 3 songs left that need a little more guitars and vocals and some lyrics. And then I have 1 song that needs vocals. I've recorded a bunch of extra songs, so I'm like halfway through a second album. So it won't be 10 years before another album comes out after this one. But the way it works is the new album, unless you're Mariah Carey or somebody, you're not releasing music past October. So I think we probably missed the cutoff to get this album out this year. So what we'll be doing for the rest of the year is we'll be releasing a couple more singles, 7 inches and singles to radio. And this will be the summer album of next year, in March of next year. And there's a cool cover on it that people don't know is people would come to our shows and they would yell, play instead of they play Boys of Summer, they go, play Summer of '69. I'm like, that's not the song we covered. But so now they can do that because I officially covered Summer of '69. And I'd like to say it's I love our cover Boys of Summer, but I think it's as good as that. I'd like to hope it is. But and I got the blessing from the songwriter Jim Valance, who wrote it with Bryan Adams. He said he thought it was a great cover, and he's heard it. I first sent it to him, and to get him to say that it has all the elements, he loved our Boys of Summer, and he thinks we did it just as good. I'm like, yes. So I cannot wait for people to hear that. And I think if the album comes out in March of next year, that makes more sense because so did So Long Astoria, so did Blue Skies, and that will set it up to be the summer record that it needs to be because that's what it is. Coming out in winter, this album wouldn't make sense. But a lot of new music the rest of the year, so definitely excited to keep stuff rolling in a very prolific phase, thankfully.
We're glad you brought it back.
Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate it. And
Did I not ever thank you, by the way?
Yeah, it's funny because when we covered that, the reason we covered it is because it was a tribute to my dad's mom and dad, or my dad's mom passed away right in 2022. And that song reminded me of being down in Florida with them when I was a little kid. And so that song became an accidental single. We were backstage playing a big radio festival for K-Rock in Los Angeles when the album came out, and we were about to do the video for the song My Reply off the record. And the A&R guy came back to us, congratulations, The Boys of Summer is your new single. I go, what? They can do that? And he's like, yeah, they added it right off the record. I'm like, wow. But I guess in my young naivete, I thought I probably should have known that like that cover was already a hit with Henley. That putting that on the album was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I'm grateful and I love how it turned out. But so that day, because of that, that was the first time I recall ever having the trajectory be something that wasn't completely my vision. And it was like, this is kind of weird. And so I took my Pedro the Lion t-shirt, I put it inside out, and I jokingly wrote, as much as I love the Eagles, it wasn't a jab. I wrote, who the fuck is Don Henley? Is the joke? Because they were a who the fuck is David Geffen shirt. And I remember in subconscious thinking that. And I went on stage with it, came off stage. Rolling Stone took a fucking picture of me for the first time, and I had that shirt on. Irving Azoff, their manager, who was our manager at the time, it was his old partner, saw it and called our manager, Darren. He goes, they'll never play that fucking song ever again. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean anything bad. So we had to cold call fucking Don Henley and say, man, our bass player did the talking. He goes, the Eagles have always meant so much to us. You know, it was the thing that brought me and my dad back together after being estranged. And I guess Henley said, now, Mike, you guys can play that song as long as you want, blah, blah, blah. And he was really cool. But funny little tidbit, many years later, he took like a little jab at us in the Montreal Gazette, just playfully. But I wrote it off. It's like, man, Henley is Henley. You know, he's a funny dude and kind of a curmudgeon, but such a sweet man. And I'll forever love his songwriting. And, you know, fuck, man, dude can say whatever he wants. I have nothing but great things to say about him. His songs and the Eagles songs were the soundtrack to my life. And I've still gone and seen him multiple times since then. And it's cool to see them play that song, even though it was on his solo record. I think, yeah, it's a weird
I just got to see him at the Sphere. If you ever get to see a show there, go.
Oh my God. I had tickets to that, but then we had to record. So I'm going to try to catch them on the last week of the Sphere shows. But I heard the Sphere is just mind blowing.
It is fan. It is. Oh
yeah.
No. You're gonna love it.
Mushrooms
It's the most wonderful thing I've ever seen, probably.
I can't wait. Yeah, I saw a video from every show from like U2, Fish, The Dead and Co. And I thought the visuals were phenomenal on YouTube. And I imagine in real life it's like otherworldly. So yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna check one of the last week of dates.
If you get motion sickness, take a pill. That's all I'm saying.
I'm gonna take mushrooms. That's what I'm gonna take when I go.
There you go. Even better.
I was just gonna say that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
Kristopher, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We love your band. Keep it up. We look forward to the new record and the one that follows. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Have a great day. See you again.